everyone. So this panel is going to be about games and influence. So let's start from an introduction of all of the people here to understand what they're working on.
Cool. Hey everyone, thanks for coming out. I'm Tarrence, and I'm building on-chain games on top of StarkNet.
I'm Neil, founder and CEO of Radio. We are building developer tools on top of StarkEX so that developers can easily build their own games and Web3 apps.
Hello everyone, I'm Pierre, I'm the blockchain lead at Sora, so we build fantasy games.
All right. Well, everybody is such a short introduction. I prepared a paragraph, but since everyone is so short and sweet, I'm Irene. I'm the founder of Irene Zhao and Soko, a decentralized social media platform. All right.
Hey everyone, I'm Yoni. I'm the founder of Matchbox. Matchbox is popularizing, building games and trying to create a new space called the developer esport. And
Hey folks, I'm Sylve, co-founder of Brick. It's an NFT building protocol on StarkNet, and I'm also a governance facilitator on the StarkNet Foundation.
Cool. Okay, so another general question: what do you think are types of games or other social applications are uniquely enabled by blockchain, and what's some examples that you see already around with potential?
All right. So at Cartridge, we're specifically interested in building like fully on-chain games, so that in contrast to traditional or like typical Web3 games where just the assets are living on chain, it's the entire universe is represented on chain and can take advantage of a lot of the properties that blockchains have to offer. So you can have games that are interoperable, composable, and are persistent. They can run forever as long as someone's interested in playing them. And the hardness that the games inherit from the blockchain means that you can have foundations that are very solid and provide like standardized APIs for people to build on top of, and you can start to have like emergent, like autonomous worlds that are executing on chain that people can contribute to over time and build businesses on top of. And I think like similar, it has a lot of similar properties to DeFi and what that's done for finance that we can do for gaming. So those are, the types of games are, I would say, mostly like turn-based, like RTS style games, and there's a bunch of cool ones building on top of StarkNet today. Realms it was one example. The Influence team, Topology is building Mumu. But yeah, it's a very early experimental phase, I would say.
If I may add, I think like games where you build something are kind of suited for blockchain. Speaking of Sora, so basically you're a manager, you're going to build a team. You could be scouting players when they are not known to the public. You think they're going to perform well over the next years. And maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the line, you want to exit the game, and you can just like transmit a team to someone else, for instance.
I would say something that excites me. Two types of dynamics. One is UGC Dynamics. So if people are building stuff, so for example, there is another game we're supporting that enable developers to write strategies and non-developers to use these strategies. So the game evolved by its users. And another thing that like 0x Monaco is a game that developers are playing and non-developers can watch and understand. So it's a very good suit for crypto people, but can expand beyond. Okay, so next question, Sylve, what do you think about NFT composability?
I really think everyone has done it wrong, but that's a bit of a hot take from the Brick team. Question for the rest of the panelists: what do you think is the most composable game asset in the physical world? Yep. Okay, I got a good one. Shit. Okay, another one. Think more like board thingies. It's a deck of 52 cards. So it's dumb as hell. You've got 52 cards, you've got a color, rank, a type, but you've got thousands and thousands of games that just reuse this exact same game asset. And the way we're thinking about composability in blockchain games is as if you were taking like a Monopoly card and trying to play it in like Risk. It's like, oh, why doesn't it work? It's obvious that it doesn't work. It's not made to work in like a different ontology. The same way that you can't bring like a pawn into a deck of 52 cards. So I think what really matters is this matter of what is called ontology. Or the diegesis. It's how is your world set up? How are the rules operating? You just can't barge in and add a new component into the world. That just doesn't make sense. So that's what exactly we've done at Brick. It's not composable between just NFTs between different worlds. It's more about anything that is built with Brick can interact with anything else that has been built with Brick. So it's rather than build something that is overly specified and trying to have like, oh, how does it match over there? It's more like, okay, everything will be composable from the ground up, and you build on top of this.
Nice. Another question, I'm not sure it's a good question, but I will ask, I'll ask anyway. So what kind of problems do you think you are solving, and for who? So I'll explain. There is a lot of assumptions, underlying assumptions for who is going to play these things, who is going to use these things. For example, in game, like the 2021 hype around play to earn, the underlying assumption that regular normie people that are playing Fortnite are going to come playing those blockchain games. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but who do you think are going to be the players of these things over the next 2 years or 1 year? And what problems does it solve for them that they are not getting right now with Fortnite and League of Legends?
So I'll try to answer this one. It's always a hard question. I think you don't necessarily see the benefits of a blockchain game until you actually, be censored on a normal game. I think Fortnite controls everything around skins and all of that. They can ban someone. So I guess this is one of these things, censorship, I think, which blockchain adds. Also, it's blockchain games are there to stay, I would say. The idea is to, what I was saying just before is like a legacy. So you're building something across, years and so on. For instance, if you play at FIFA Foot, like the cards, you will have to buy new cards every season. That's not like the idea we have behind blockchain games. It's like you own your cards, you build your legacy, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can share a little bit because I'm coming from a very different market where I have been based in Singapore for the past 16 years, where the market has the most populations across Asia Pacific and Japan. When I look into the blockchain, my first issue is actually the scaling part, right? If you want to put a popular game into a population that huge, with the current blockchain, it doesn't work. And with some of the experimental on layer 2, it also doesn't work. That's where we come down and sit down with my developers, what the technology can really solve these issues. And we see StarkWare and Irene's team has been building a very good stuff, but it's not easy to build, right? So that's where we come down and really build APIs for developers so that they can just integrate with our APIs and deploy a service for their large populations on the gaming side and the application side. So that's my angle to look into these problems.
Cool. I think there's been, a lot of emphasis on the player, like financialization of gaming on the blockchain. But I think actually a lot of what we're building for is game developers. And I think there's a lot of properties that blockchains enable for developers that makes it much easier, or developers and creators, right? That much easier to, exercise creativity and bring experiences to market with like a lot of leverage, like when you can build on top of existing infrastructure. For example, if you build a game today, right? If you're building a turn-based game and you need some shared state, like you have to build, you come up with the idea of the game, you need all the assets, you need to stand up some servers. It's like a whole endeavor, right? And it's similar, it used to be the case for DeFi or financial applications. You would like, if you wanted to build a perpetuals protocol or something before the blockchain, there was like a whole ton of stuff that you had to do on the back end, stand up your own infrastructure, like you're in AWS, you need like a bunch of skill sets. And then the blockchain came around and gave you this, persistent compute that was shared state, and it had some constraints, and you had to build things like particularly around those constraints, but it gave like individual developers a massive amount of leverage, right? Like where one developer could build in a weekend a protocol and ship it to mainnet, and it could scale to hundreds of millions of dollars very easily. You didn't need like massive teams to manage that. So today I would say that's not very possible in game development. And I think like on top of StarkNet, we have the ability to expose a lot of properties of the blockchain to game developers and make it easier for them to build games. And then they can take advantage of, like creators, for example, can take advantage of obviously if you build something of value and you want to monetize it, blockchains do a really great job of that baseline. It's permissionless. You don't have to be worried about building a mod for a game that people love and then the IP holder coming after you and suing you or trying to incorporate that value into extract that value themselves. So I think for people that are creative and interested in building games, the blockchain is a great venue to do that. And through making that so much more accessible, we're going to build better gaming experiences that players just want to play because they're fun and not necessarily because they can make money doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can also add to that the developer are not only on the composability front but also on the player front. So if if you think how some type of game became mainstream, like Formula 1 became mainstream not because there is a million drivers, but basically the meta layer grew a lot. So if we can make it fun to watch or interact with and see developers playing, maybe that could be a way that no such game can be mainstream and not necessarily, the fantasy of most people that we should get all of the kids that are playing Fortnite from their parents' credit card to start using MetaMask, and maybe that's also a path, but maybe there is another path with the meta layer.
I think that's a really good point because if you think about the contrast of traditional sports, right? If you wanted to have a soccer game and film it and broadcast it, you can do that. And people can compete on broadcasting and creating, different live casts of professional sports and stuff like that. Today in the digital world, if you want to have a competitive League of Legends tournament, it has to be blessed by Riot. You can't just go and do this. So there's no space for innovating on the meta layer of the content creation on top of it and the broadcasting and how do you format things. But when you have a blockchain-based game where the IP and the ecosystem is owned by the players and it doesn't have these constraints, you open up this ability for innovation for people to try and different things on top of it without having to go through a single party. I think that will result in a lot of interesting experimentation.
Okay, let's speak a bit about influence. Irene, what do you think is interesting with influencers tooling, with stuff for communities? What do you think have potential? What trends do you see?
Yeah. So before starting Soko, I have been building my personal branding for the past 6 years. So right now I have about 500,000 followers across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And during that 6 years, I've been building very good connections with the big brands. But the truth is that it kind of sucks. Because although I have such a huge following, there's no way for me to monetize on my followers at all. The only way for me to monetize is through sponsored content. And that's when you see all these funny tweets and funny photos with me on we were posting very sexy posts with a water purifier, with gaming chair, with even male shampoo, because most of my fans are like guys. Right? So this is the problem with centralized social media platforms. You don't really own anything. You don't get most of it. You don't own your content. You don't own your community. So I got into crypto earlier 2021, and I started to learn more about NFT. And I realized actually through NFT, the fans are able to own part of the, Right. So the fans can own part of the creator's work through NFTs. For example, you are a musician, you are an artist, you are a creator, right? You can turn all kinds of your content into NFTs. And therefore your fans can be part of the community by owning your journey. And this is like really revolutionized the way for all the creators to create NFT-gated communities to better engage the fans. So because I know I have a huge following, right, and I really want to build a community around my fans. So as a social experiment, I started the Irene Zhao. Actually, it's supposed to be a meme, but it turns out to be I would say it's kind of success because we had about 2,000 ETH trading volume for the first week. So I asked myself, if I can do it myself, there are thousands of girls who are hotter. There are thousands of musicians, artists who are more talented and have millions of fans. They can do the same thing to make a living just by doing the NFTs. But the truth is there are not many creators or Web2 influencers doing the things right now. And I think the problem is the barriers of entry just too high for mainstream creators to launch the NFT collection and to interact with the fans. And therefore, at a so-called platform, it's what we have been building for the past 1 year. We are trying to build a one-stop platform for all these brands and the creators to create their own versions of Irene Zhao at the click of button and to better engage with the communities.
Cool. Yeah. And what's some examples for the dynamics there?
What do you mean by the dynamics?
What is possible?
Yeah.
I mean, what is possible for other Irenes, future Irenes, to do besides selling NFTs? So, what they can do.
I think, right, all the fans, what they want is real-life activities to get closer to the inner circle of that creator. So that by buying an NFT, you are able to get into the inner circle to interact with the creator when they have a real-life events, like you can go to the backstage pass, you can have all this closer interaction with the creators. I think this is what the fans really want to.
So access to calls, access to video.
The chance to have a closer interaction with the creators, with the people they like.
I think I added in a little bit because my first step was more about musicians. My first startup was actually invested by Neil Young. I kind of knew the musician ecosystem quite well. For the musicians, right, the big issue is for the living, right? They can't find any other living expenses other than just going to different shows. Now with the NFTs and the royalty for the musician, for the music itself, they are able to sell a big thing at one go. And now what they really need to think about is how to engage with the musician, with their fans, and also how to make the music better, right? It's totally changed their way of their creating music. Just to add another example.
Yeah, I think it's already for all the artists as well. Also, even the movie producer, they can turn the movie into NFTs, and those who have the voting power can choose the movie's plot and who is able to act in the movie. So this is all the kinds of different NFTs we can come up with.
When people ask the question, what has blockchain solved? I really think that we haven't solved much. We've just found ways to do things differently. My hot take is DeFi is never going to take over traditional finance. We're just going to invent new ways of doing stuff to just have switching costs that are massive. But there's one thing that blockchain has brought that was just not possible before, and that was just NFTs. So the little story is that my master's was in media arts and creation, which is a trash thing, so it was horrible. But the one thing I had to study about was little niche in arts. And the one niche I found about is video art. So it's in an exhibition, I see a kind of a gif of a guy going up and jumping in the water and then doing this in a loop. And I look at it, I'm so it's 2014, I'm this is really neat. How do I buy that? And then I realized that the video market, art, is super tiny because it just doesn't fall nicely into the the legal representation of what it is and what can be bought. So the reason it's a small market is because you need to have these like installations. They need to sell. You can't just sell this thing as like, oh, I'm selling you the video. It just has no meaning. So what they have to sell you is like an entire fucking TV, and you have to bring that home, and no one can buy it. So when people ask me like, what has blockchain solved? It's like the art market. Like if you had a webcomic before, the only way for you to monetize it is to sell prints, have a Patreon, or advertising. That's the only way you can do it. And right now, you can sell an NFT. It's the first time a digital artist is able to make a living out of what they were doing before. Because in the old ways of the internet, the normal primitive is abundance. So that means that the value is going to zero. It's like infinite copies. And right now, we're able to introduce scarcity. So all of a sudden, we're able to reify, to like make things tangible that were not before. So that's like one thing that I do think we've managed to solve, and that was not possible before. So if you're, it's always a bit strange. Like why are artists like so angry at NFTs? It's like, oh, you can do commissions. Like, yeah, you can't do enough commissions. It just doesn't scale. So if you're a digital artist today, I think the best thing you can do is just sell NFTs. It just works.
Yeah. Something that I'm thinking about a lot is how games and fantasy dynamics can help, creators. So, for example, one of China's streamers sold like $1 billion or something of lipstick while playing one of the games in the stream. So, and most of the streamers are playing games during their streams. So what do you think are some dynamics that could help, like that creators and communities can use games in order to monetize better and engage better? Games and fantasy also. Pierre.
I'm not sure, but the question is like, how does blockchain help?
How
engage,
the dynamics
okay,
of games and fantasy can
yeah,
help
so fantasy,
creators.
I mean, it's an interesting topic. So our game basically tries to kind of bind together a digital asset in the form of NFTs with the real life, right? So there's several ways of doing that. Is the game. The game is a fantasy game, so every goal a player scores in the real life is gonna give you points in the game. So that's one first connection. And the second connection is that in the game you can win. You have access, right? You can win tickets, special events, and things like that. And also, like, what we like to say is, like, to our managers is own your game. Be proud of what you own. So if you've discovered this player that was playing at League 2 club in France and is now part of the national team, you have his card from 3 years ago. You can be proud of it. There's like an emotional connection to this card. And we see also with our managers that during the game they are quite, games become like quite intense. And it's a new way for people to also enjoy the game. Like, if you don't necessarily have, you cannot necessarily go to a physical game. NBA have signed a contract with us. They really like the fact that we have a global audience. For them, it's a way also to reach to other countries. So yeah.
Yeah, I can add in a little bit because I have been working with a lot of gaming companies. They are basically struggling with either I can help my first few customers earn a lot of money, or I make the game very easy to play and stick it. So now I see, and the first question actually just now Yoni asked was coming from the first group of users, because you want them to earn more money so that they can be more sticky. But actually I see the industry has been shifted a little bit to make the gaming more sticky, because you look at the past gamings, right? How long they can survive. But look at the traditional games, they can survive for a long time, even for very old games. Still a lot of fans are playing, right? So I think right now the industry is trying to work hard to make sure the blockchain games are easy to play and fun to play before you talk about earn too much money. From that perspective, that's another way of engaging with the gaming users, other than just make the single event popular.
Oh, yeah, one more point. I think the other aspect of like how gaming can interact with the influencers, like we came up with influencers and we came up with their avatars. And with these AI-generated avatars, you can actually play with your favorite creators during a game. So this is another technology that we are trying to explore right now, because I feel like it's getting really popular, especially in Japan, in Korea, for those who have this like fandom, right? So we are trying to explore the technology as well and see how we can really connect technology, the AI, the blockchain, and the gaming together.
When VTubers on StarkNet?
Okay, another question is how should we abstract? Like, so what tools can we use today in order to make the blockchain less appealing to new people? Because if they will need a gas fee every time, like to use ETH or anything. So what do you think are some of the things that we can use today in order to abstract the blockchain, make it easier for first-time users?
I'll maybe take this one. We've been pushing a little bit. I mean, I guess like StarkWare has done probably the best job of onboarding traditional players to a Web3 game. But we've been working in the space as well. I don't know if you guys may have seen, like we had some QR codes around. We partnered with Brick to give out, and if you scan it, and if you haven't seen it, you can come by, like either me or Sylve or a few other people have the QR codes. You can scan it and use. One of the unique things that StarkNet enables is account abstraction, and basically what that means is that you can implement your own logic for verifying like whether a transaction is valid or not. And there's an existing industry movement called WebAuthn that's supported by like Apple, Microsoft, and Google to allow you to use like the secure element that's in your device to sign transactions. And I think this, to me, is a critical component of onboarding users and abstracting the blockchain from them. So you can scan a QR code and just with a single like tap of a button, scan your fingerprint or face print, you can create an account on StarkNet. And because the fees are so low, we can subsidize the transactions of creating your account and issuing you the NFTs. So for the user's perspective, it's like, as easy as unlocking your phone. So I think that's one core component of onboarding users and abstracting away the underlying like blockchain piece of it. I think like probably, I think in order to appeal to really big audiences, we're gonna have to like kind of like chill out on the financialization of everything. I don't think like especially in games, right? A lot of people that play games are young. I think like having avenues for creators and people that like bring value to the ecosystem to get compensated is obviously really important. But like I think if we have like basically parents think that their kids are just gambling, I think it's gonna be a tough sell. So I think like we need to be kind of considerate in how we expose like the hyper-financialization of everything, specifically for gaming. And I think that will come with also, removing like the concept of gas fees, because if you have subsidized transactions, a game or a protocol or whatever can kind of compute, like a lifetime value of a user and decide to subsidize things if the gas fees aren't, $100 per transaction. And you can start to have like a more traditional experience from a gamer's perspective, but they can get like games that have like properties from the blockchain and things more similar to like the games in the real world.
Yeah, I think so. The wallet is one of the big things. I wish we could do the same on Solar, but we can't with StarkX right now. But I think also payment, like a mainstream user, they don't have ETH, right? They don't even know what it is. And getting ETH to our platform is difficult. You either have to go to a centralized exchange, use on-ramps, go through KYC. That's a lot of friction, especially for new users. So maybe also better integrating traditional, payment methods. For for instance, on SOAR, you can buy with your credit card directly. I think that's a big one too, payments.
No, I completely agree with you both. I think there is one thing that we're going to be able to do with StarkNet like really well is to make the wallet invisible. I think that was definitely something that both Scott raised with the WebAuthn and StarkWare with your managed wallet. Well, your, how would you put that? Your managed wallet for users, you've done really well. And I think what's crucial here, we're done? Okay, last one. What's super interesting here is not like to mix up the finger and the moon. Like, users do not care about having wallets. And that ties up with what you said about finalization. It's like every single app you see about wallets, like, oh great, I see my assets. This is because that's the one use case that we have for wallets. But wallets can be much more complex than this. And with the headless wallets that we're having with Argent, with yourself, it's starting to morph into something different. And so rather than tell users that, oh, you need to have a wallet, I think what we really need to focus on right now is what's the use case. What I've been harassing Argent about is build an NFT checkout thing. There was this report by Electric Capital, which was what was the first transaction people did on Ethereum, and 90% was NFT. And if you are on Rarible, you can do the whole flow. It's like, okay, create your account, pay with credit card, and at the end of the flow, it asks you, oh, what's your Ethereum address? Great experience. What you really want is pay by credit card, input your email address, a password, it creates a wallet, you do not even know the wallet is here. Or you scan a QR code. Then you got another application, scan a QR code, oh, you already have a wallet, let me log you in. Oh, you already had that NFT from that other game, let me add it here. And currently the solution that exists are very like siloed because they think, oh, user wants an app, wants a wallet on that app. That's not what they want. You're not using blockchain to its fullest capacities. So I'm super excited to see what's going to happen with like the headless wallet movement.